leveling up in role-playing games. Leveling up in role-playing games can really become an obstacle. Should your cleric just learn how to turn undead from no experience or no learning process at all? Or should your fighter just try to knock people down out of nowhere? Also, why didn't he do that before? Is there any reason for that? Does it even make any sense? What the hell is going on? But, I mean, that's what this video is for, because in this video I will tell you some nice and helpful tips, hopefully, on how to implement the level ups of your players into your game. As always, communication is key in role-playing, and that also counts for leveling up. You should definitely talk to your players in maybe a session 0 or just in between sessions on how they would like to process in-game, how they would like to use the level up. Would they like to have a level up that is instantaneously, gives them all their benefits? Or would some of the players maybe like to have a more gradient learning process of leveling up, like learning specific skills just time after time, or having to train specific actions before they can really become a master in them? So you definitely should talk to the players and figure out which kind of playstyle they would prefer. But there's one very good thing about it, which is that they don't have to agree on one style. There's really no disadvantage in managing level ups differently for each player. If one player, for example the rogue, you know, he's kind of egoistic, he would like to have all the benefits of leveling up in an instant, then sure, let him have all of those. If the druid, patient as he is for example, would like to have a more slow learning process, he would like to implement his gain of abilities into the story a bit more, then play with that and get a plan on how to do that with him. While you could argue that it is kind of weird that one learns very fast and gets all the skills in an instant and the other one takes a lot more time, I don't think it's really a problem. You could just try to explain it by saying one's a kind of a natural talent, or he maybe just uses skills he's seen other people use before, while the other one may be a perfectionist. He'd like to have a lot more learning process in before trying to use specific abilities. He likes to work out things methodically for himself, so that's probably why he doesn't do it in an instant. So there really isn't a big disadvantage in treating players differently on that behalf. Also, having someone learn an intriguing skill for himself just at a random moment in your session can be a bit immersion breaking, unrealistic even, or at least unfitting and kind of weird, to be honest. I always recommend having leveling ups over time, where players can gradually learn how to use their skills, maybe have some downtime activities, maybe just face some challenges that need a specific skill to really get past. And most importantly, try to involve that learning process into your story, because then it might even be a new plot hook for your campaign, or at least it could bring some interesting new side quests or some interesting encounters even. So you should definitely do that, because it will just make the whole experience way more immersive. The players will feel as they have more impact on your world, on your story, and it makes the whole thing just way more interesting, more dynamic, and way more beautiful even. In some cases you might want to give the players hints on when they will be able to use specific actions. They can rely on your advice, but of course it's always better if they can just decide themselves on when they feel ready to do specific actions, when they think they've done their part to earn the new ability. And also then you won't have to face players that are unhappy because they actually would like to use their skills but they aren't allowed. That should never be the case, really. In my sessions of Pathfinder, I really always just tell my players at the beginning then that they can handle level ups how they want to. They can decide on if they want to earn all the benefits just straight up when they get the level up, or if they want to have a more learning experience, and I've never really had many problems with that. I gotta say, I have some players who really like to have the more immersive, realistic playstyle doing that. If you might have some more min-maxing kind of players, they might have, rely on getting all their benefits in an instant. But especially if you have a roleplay heavy or a world building heavy campaign, I think your players might really choose the way to go a bit slower, have the whole thing a bit more embedded in your storytelling, in your world building, and it will just play a lot better together, and you'll have more relationships because they might seek out a trainer. You might get more random NPC encounters because they might try out their new skills by stealing stuff from specific people, or going into an arena to try out new fighting styles, getting a sparring partner, stuff like that are just things they would normally not do. And by having them train, by having them earn their abilities, they will do that a lot more often, and I think that's quite beautiful. In my PF2E game, for example, I had a paladin. She was struggling on which oath she should pick. She was kind of having an argument over 2 oaths. She wasn't sure which one to pick, so she just sat down at the beginning of the session and said, alright, I'm playing this session and trying to get a hint from the world, from what's happening around me, so I can decide at the end of the session on which oath to pick. And yeah, she did just that. It was kind of a cool experience. She kind of had some interpretation of the quests and the events that were going on in the session, and I think she was pretty confident on which oath she picked at the end. Same with an Oracle player. He kind of wanted to get the Bard archetype way later in the future, so he already did things like singing some tavern songs, writing music, even buying an instrument so he could practice all the time and just build the path towards getting the Bard archetype, for example. And the last example, I think it's kind of a different one because I have a witch player. He kind of started out as someone who got revived by mysterious circumstances, maybe his patron, we don't know. But yeah, he just does not have any grasp of his magic abilities so far, even though he, of course, he knows spells from the beginning because he's a witch. But he just likes to give all the power to me, really, when it comes to telling him what he can do. So I just plan out some events that can happen where he just gets a vision, you could say, where he is demanded really to use a specific spell or stuff like that, and by doing that he just kind of gets a better idea of what he's capable of without having to go into his meta mind, you could say, and looking which kind of spells can I use and all the stuff like that. So he kind of lets me decide, and it's kind of a cool play in between me and him, and that can also work. But of course, with that method you have to do a lot of more communication so the player isn't bored, like, oh, when can I use my spells already, come on. But that hasn't happened so far, I hope, at least. So that's also a method you can go for. And something you can do after each session, really, or maybe after a few sessions have passed, ask your players on how they would like to progress, because that's also one thing that is very important, to keep track of what are the aspirations of your characters. Do they already know if they maybe want to get an archetype, multiclass, whatever it is in your rule system? Ask them. And if you know that, you can put in a lot of more challenges, more events, more enemies that fit those aspirations. For example, if the rogue is planning to get better in thievery, maybe just put in a lot of opportunities to pick up some chests that can be lock-picked or pickpocketed people. Well, not pickpocketed, but people to pickpocket. You know what I mean. And by that, you just give them a clear path towards their goal, and it will play a lot more smoothly, and is kind of a good idea, actually. Or if people will get new spells, the spellcasters in your group, maybe ask them, do they already know which kind of spells they're gonna choose? Maybe put in some challenges that would be way easier with them knowing the spells, even if they don't know them yet. So they have kind of an aspiration towards learning the spell because they saw the challenge or the problem they were facing and it was kind of hard, and they were thinking about how do I solve this problem without dying nearly every time. And then they might think about, how do I learn the spell? How do I practice the spell? And in the end they can learn the spell, use it on a regular basis, and it just works perfectly. So yeah, those are mostly all my tips for leveling up in your campaign, in your RPG setting. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you could learn a bit from this video. And yeah, I really love to hear your opinion about all of this down in the comments, of course. After the last video, I got tons of subs, well, for me at least. But anyways, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe, follow my Twitter, follow my Twitch, follow me on Reddit. Is there anything else that I missed so far? I don't know, but I'll see you in the next one, and have an absolutely wonderful day. Goodbye.